It's an incredible setup here, incredible matchmaking, incredible storytelling. Oh, you had to come here. All these fighters that step in here are warriors, and all have my respect. And I'm into this game, yeah. I'll be into this, yeah.
And we are live here in the Maverick Center, here in Salt Lake City, Utah. Folks, what a night. It is going to be historic indeed for BKFC 56.
Whoever's the king of violence right here, this is going to be a great fight.
Harry on the target. Right hand from my Perry, double champion. Who's the king of violence? I am!
Combat fighting in its purest form, bare knuckle fighting in the city of angels.
80 seconds remaining.
We've got the biggest announcement in the BKFC history we're about to make, so let's make that announcement.
What's up, Knucklemania? The notorious Conor McGregor here. Ladies and gentlemen, the huge announcement that I have for you today. Conor McGregor, myself, and McGregor Sports and Entertainment is now an owner of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. Welcome to the big leagues. David Feldman, baby, we did it.
He's now an owner of BKFC with us, and we're going to take this motherfucking thing all the way to the top now.
Hour number 3 on this Wednesday morning on the SportsGrid Network, Sirius XM Channel 159, the early line, Dubs and Donnie rolling through tons of topics, tons of reactionary stuff to go over, and also interesting questions. In just a moment, we're going to reach out to the public. But Dubsy, over these first 2 hours, the energy is high. 1 more hour to go. How are we feeling right now? Let's get a little check.
We are flying high. Happy hump day. We've got a couple of Kendrick Lamar lyrics in the mix as well. A couple of look aheads to later today. And I'll tell you what, great to have football back in the mix, Donnie. I've said it once. I'll say it again. There's no place I'd rather be than right here on the early line on a Wednesday, jumping after it.
It's so nice, too. Like waking up in the morning, you walk outside now. It used to be like, oh, man, it's so hot and it's so muggy here in the Northeast, like the temperature starting to change. You know it's football season. The games get bigger week to week to week and more fun that we can have. We certainly like to get involved. And speaking of getting involved here, Dubsy, we love to hear what the public has to say. And each and every morning, we put out a poll, which we want to reach out to the public and say, should we fade the public or should we back the public? But the one thing we do know is we want to hear from the public. And today, at SportsGrid, follow us here on X, on Twitter, you were asked a poll this morning, which was, which team is the best bet to win the AFC this season? Now, the questions were the answers, I should say, the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins, the New York Jets, and the New England Patriots. There's 4 spots here, so we had to put 4 teams. Maybe one of those teams we could have left out. And certainly 5% of the votes coming in, we should be throwing them out on the bell curve because they are on the New England Patriots. But the favorite today is the Buffalo Bills at a plus 180 price, taking down 45% of those votes. In second place, the Miami Dolphins with 39%. Those 2 teams close, Dubsy. Those 2 teams playing tomorrow night here. So let's start right now before we even talk about the game tomorrow. For you, which team got your vote?
It's going to be the Miami Dolphins. They got my vote, and they're still going to get it, and they're going to get an even bigger punch towards that green light after Thursday Night Football. I think the offense is the most explosive in the National Football League. I think they're only going to get better the further we get into the regular season. The only concern is at the back end of the year, once they get to start playing in the cooler climates, if you will. But don't get it twisted. This is the most exciting team in the NFL right now. And in terms of the Bills, the play against for me, it's back on Josh Allen. One of the best quarterbacks in the league, Donnie, but how much can he really do? How much can he sustain if he continues to see what we saw there in week 1? He is going to continue to cop a lot of knocks, a lot of those weapons, and on the defensive side, looked a little vulnerable for me out the gates there. So it's a play against in the Buffalo Bills. It's all things pointing towards the Miami Dolphins. And look, Jacoby Brissett and the Pats, nice win in week 1 for the Jets. Aaron Rodgers, he looked pretty sharp, but it's early days, too much for me to buy in. So it was the Miami Dolphins getting my vote. Are we seeing it the same, Donnie? Who have you got up top of the East?
See, now here's what I wanted to say from week one, because I had in the offseason, Dubs, for the majority of the offseason, like, you know what? I'm going to back the Buffalo Bills. I think they can get it done. The more I thought about it, analyzed it, and looked at rosters, I switched over to the New York Jets. Now, granted, the Jets didn't look all that great against the 49ers. The 49ers are going to make a lot of teams look bad. So after week one, I can't abandon ship. So I did vote for the Jets. So I'm with that 11% out here at this point. But if we look at these four teams, right, Dubsy, the Patriots did win week number one. They did beat a team that most people think are going to make a run to an AFC championship with the possibility of winning at least a playoff game in the Bengals. We'll see if they get Jamar Chase and T. Higgins back on the field at the same time and they look better. But they won the Patriots. 29-1 is pretty funny to me. So 5% of the people out there actually voted the best bet in the AFC this season is the New England Patriots. Did your opinions change on the Patriots after week number one, or is it still they have zero chance to win this division?
They were better than expected. I think the Bengals were a lot worse than expected. For Joe Burrow and the Bengals, I think they're going to improve. But I'd tell you what, a little worrisome from what we did see in week one. For the Pats, you know, what is the ceiling for Jacoby Brissett? How long is he going to be the starter there before Drake May takes over the reins? But look, if you're playing their win totals, some of their early numbers, you got to like the fact that they got off to a very strong road win up there in Cincinnati when no one really gave them a chance. I believe it was right around 33%. A lot of the Vegas contests and the survivor polls, people were getting bounced because they thought it was an absolute L word. I'm not going to say it towards Cincy. So for the Pats, thumbs up. Are you going to get an endorsement from me going through the regular season? No, it's still New England. They're really going to struggle to get it downfield, and they will be tested week in, week out. So it's an absolute fade play for me going against the Patriots. Jacoby Brissett can't buy in. But I tell you what, Donnie, I like what I saw from Aaron Rodgers and the Jets on Monday night, going against, you know, the best roster in the NFL. I thought Aaron Rodgers looked pretty sharp on his return. He hasn't got that speed out of the pocket, but tell you what, there's nothing wrong with that arm.
Let's go right there. And it's a good point you bring up, too, because some things are lost where if you come away from that Monday Night Football game, to me, I didn't think the Jets looked that great, but it was the defense, Dubsy, not the offense here. I thought Aaron Rodgers moved around the pocket well. The arms still looked live, but they were just going up against a better football team that just held the football and kept away the Jets from their chances to score. And also, late in the football game, to get that late tackle and touchdown, Aaron Rodgers wasn't even in the game. So that is an interesting one to look at, where they even asked Coach Robert Saleh, hey, you know what? Last year you're 1-0. This year 0-1, but way more optimistic this year. And he's like, you know, you're right, because you lost Aaron Rodgers last year, game number one. You still have him here this season. If we are looking at the top of those standings right now, Dubsy, right? Plus 180 each side. The Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins to win that division. We see the voting here. It's pretty close. 45% essentially to 39%. Let me ask you this. If we are looking towards tomorrow night's game, is that going to sway your opinion here on who wins that? Because obviously the winner will take command of the AFC East, but will that be a good buyback point for either team that you figure, like, you know what? They're not out of it. Now I get a better price to the loser here.
Yeah, especially if you like the Bills. I don't think they're going to get the win on Thursday night, so it could be a nice little buy low spot. That number could jump to as high as plus 190. I think the Dolphins get off to a fast start, and it could be the Bills playing catch up. But again, if they drop this one, can they sort of, recapture, I guess, a bit of expectation that we had through the preseason coming in for that side? For me, I'm all about Miami. I'm big on the Dolphins. I think they're a playoff football team. I think they can do damage in the playoffs. I think they've taken their lumps over the last couple of years. I think Tua is going to improve with those turnovers. It was 26 and counting last year. I don't think there's any slowdown in terms of what we see from the Cheetah and Waddle. Arguably, maybe not the best 1-2 punch. You probably got that over there in Philadelphia, but I think now's the time to buy in on the Dolphins. I think it's going to be another tremendous regular season, and it's never a bad thing when you're putting up the most points on the weekly, week in, week out in the National Football League playing catch up. That's going to bode well in terms of what we see there from Miami. So plus 150, top of the board. That's the green light for me, Donnie.
Now, let's take a look here. Can we put that graphic back up here at SportsGrid's account just to make sure we have things correct? Because sometimes when we put it up, let me see. I'm going to get okay. Now, if you can see the graphic here, Dubsy, can you spot the mistake on that graphic for me? I'll give you a second here to look over it. Like, you see the first line, you see the second line, you see the votes. Do you think there's a mistake anywhere listed in there at this point right now as the people are watching along with us? Anything?
Well, it's tough for me, Donnie. I got to get the old spectacles out. I'm sitting across the mirror. I mean, 11% of the votes going towards the Jets, but they're still sitting there at plus 190. I guess I guess that could be the outlier. But what about the tags, Donnie? Am I missing something?
Yeah. Look, everything is blue except for one thing in there. So can you spot the disrespect? Like, what could be wrong
Donnie,
there? Hashtag NFL
Donnie,
is correct.
Oh,
Look at
no.
that. Look at that.
What's going on here?
I mean, come on now.
Graphics
Did
department,
I change
social
my name?
media. That's not good enough,
I mean,
Donnie. Disrespected on a Wednesday.
Somebody out there just completely disrespecting me at this point. It happens way too many times, Dub. Like, when you come on Wednesdays, you expect a certain amount of respect that you get on the show that we give you, and rightfully so. Quality guy, does his job, shows up to work, puts in that performance. They get your handle right. Time to time, but Dubsy, they don't get my handle correct here. So I hit the retweet, and I usually don't actually say, like, I'll vote on it, and then I'll retweet it, and then I don't actually technically look at the results until we go live on the air for this segment. And more times than not, it's ridiculous. At Ryside VP. That's not helping me get followers at this point. That's not helping the show. It's not helping the promotion. Phone calls, Dubsy, will be made after we get off the air. The disrespect, it cannot happen anymore for your boy DRS. We'll be right back. More hot topics on the way on this glorious Wednesday morning.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the early line. Dubs Anderson alongside Donnie Rightside. Time to take a look at what's on tap for you baseball bettors going in to Wednesday afternoon. It's the Texas Rangers looking to rumble, going against the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's expected to be a hot afternoon, Donnie, out there at Chase Field. 100+ and counting. Cody Bradford gets out there on the hill for the Rangers, the big lefty, and Merrill Kelly gets to toe the slab here for the Diamondbacks. Taking a look at the numbers, it's Arizona minus 152 there on the money line, with that total sitting right around 8.5.
You know what's going to be tough about this one? Yesterday, you saw a great pitching performance out of Zach Allen, right? 6-0 victory. That's what you're supposed to do. The haves and the have-nots, as we talk about it. Texas isn't going to make the playoffs. Arizona looks like they will do that. Now, this is an afternoon game, 3:40 start, which is actually out there, 12:40 Pacific time. If we line this game up, Merrill Kelly, not the same pitcher as what you're getting from Zach Allen yesterday. Take a look at this, Dubsy. His last 105 batters that he's faced, his ISO power number, 289, ridiculously high. Weighted on base percentage, 414. An equal opportunity, Dubsy. Lefty and righty batters getting the best of him. But here's the issue. That's not a great lineup right now for the Texas Rangers, particularly up against right-handed pitching over the past month. You take a look at Wyatt Langford, Adolis Garcia, and Ezekiel Duran, all positive numbers. Everybody else is below average. Now let's flip it over to the Texas side of things of who they're starting on the mound. That's Cody Bradford. Theoretically, on the card today, he's a much better pitcher than Merrill Kelly is. Bradford coming into this one, 3.80 ERA over the past 60 days, and his xFIP number, manageable at 3.90. Merrill Kelly, on the other hand, through 28 and 2/3 innings pitched, a 5.72 ERA. But if we're also looking at Cody Bradford, left-handed pitcher, he's been really good here, Dubsy, against right-handed batters as of late. On the season, it's a 141 ISO power number. Over the last 30 days, that dropped to a 121. The one thing we do know is a lot of switch hitters in that lineup for the Arizona Diamondbacks. So the primary numbers will be against right-handed batters. The only lefties look like Corbin Carroll and Jake McCarthy. So 7 right-handed batters, 2 left-handed batters in this lineup. I might be looking at this game and actually thinking about an under here because I think the pitching matchups make some sense. Not a great pitcher on the side for Arizona, not a great lineup for the Rangers. A much better lineup for the Diamondbacks, but Bradford does pitch well to right-handed batters. Let's go under in the desert this afternoon.
Could be a low scorer out there for a hot one this afternoon. Speaking of low scorers, let's take it to a pitcher's paradise up there in Seattle. It's the Mariners at home taking on the Padres. Last night it was the Padres getting it done 7-3, and they'll get Michael King out there on the hill this afternoon. Brian Wu gets the start for the Mariners. Brian Wu with a 7-2 win-loss. 2.36 ERA. Not expected to see a lot of offense in this one, but looks to be one of the closest games of the afternoon. The odds makers have it set as a pick'em, with that total being just at 6.5 runs.
Yeah, this is like a playoff atmosphere, right, Dubsy? You need San Diego to win if they want to stay in that wild card race and certainly make the playoffs. But also, from a Seattle Mariners perspective, you're almost looking at that last Hail Mary to try to overtake the Houston Astros. But you're right about it. Look at that price point. 6.5 on this game, which means 7 runs win this. You're not even getting that buffer, at least 7 or 7.5, to push that closer to that 8.5 number that you would need to get over. You take a look at Michael King. Nothing short of sensational, Dubsy. Last 60 days in Major League Baseball, 5-2 record, 45 and 2/3 innings pitched. But look at this, an ERA of 2.36 and the second best pitcher on the card today with his xFIP at a 3.07. You flip it over to the other side and you say, well, what am I going to get out of Brian Wu for the Seattle Mariners? He's 4-1 over the past 60 days with 58 1/3 innings pitched. How about his ERA? 2.78 and a very manageable 3.67 xFIP number. So it is low. Both of the lineups are decent, but this is a pitching paradise, as we like to say. They got 10 runs combined last night. I don't think we get here. But here's the tough part about it. Donnie, if you had a free bet, which way would you go here on the total? I still probably would go under 6.5, but my goodness, man, you're sweating it out, Dubsy, at 3-2, 3-3. It's an automatic over going to extras. It's tough to do, but as we say, those numbers are there for a reason. I would be surprised if we go near 8 to 9 runs, which puts you in the ballpark for an under. But 6 or less, that's sometimes a tough draw, man.
Scores like that, Donnie, we expect to see them on a Saturday morning in the English Premier League, but that's what we're accustomed to up there in Seattle at T-Mobile Park. Let's take it up to Toronto. It's the Blue Jays playing host again here, going against the Mets. One team with plenty to play for, the other in the Blue Jays, not so much. Both arms have been pretty strong from what we have seen leading back in for this one. Monea will get the start for the Mets there, and they're listed as your favorites. Minus 120 on the money line. That total sitting at 8. It was 8 runs last night. It was 5 in game 1. What do we expect for game 3, Donnie?
Dubs, I got 25 pitchers on my card today that I have rated here over the past 60 days, right? If we're looking at these 2 pitchers today, they actually come in number 6 and number 7 on the board. So a competitive pitching matchup. If we look at Bowden Francis, 5-2 over the past 60 days, 48 innings pitched. Look at this ERA. 1.88 and an xFIP number of 3.54. Sean Manaea has been very good for the New York Mets over the last 60 days for him, Dubsy. 6-2 record here, 68 innings pitched, a 3.44 ERA, but a 3.60 xFIP. So look at those 2 xFIPs, 3.54, 3.60. We're expecting good performances out of both sides. Now, if you want to say, say the Mets need to win this game more than the Toronto Blue Jays, sure, that's a question mark there. Of course, that needs to be answered, and we think the Mets should win this game. But having said that, they should have won that game last night and weren't able to do that. If, again, we're playing in a playoff atmosphere today, the Mets just need to win at all costs. I'm probably just going to look here, Dubsy, under the total once again. These two pitchers coming in pretty good form.
The Nationals, Donnie, this one feeling like a playoff spot. I don't know about that, but in the division we keep it. National League East showdown between the Braves going against the Nats here. Both arms sort of middling form for what we have seen going through the regular season. It was the Braves giving them an absolute beatdown last night, 12-0, blanking the Nationals, and they're booked as your favorites again for this one, -176. Is the juice worth the squeeze with Atlanta?
I think it probably is. You saw yesterday, like your starting pitcher gets knocked out in, the first inning, and you still end up winning that game by double digits and shut out the Washington Nationals. So it's clear you really need a victory, like we just talked about the New York Mets. They really need a victory to stay in it with the Atlanta Braves. You take a look at Max Fried. How about this, though? 2-4 over the past 60 days through 45 and 2/3 innings pitched. His ERA, it's not terrible, 3.74. He has a better xFIP number at 3.39. So maybe there would be the leader. You look at that lineup, Harris, Soler, Ozuna, Olsen, Murphy. They really produced runs yesterday, and I'm sort of expecting the same thing. 80-degree temperatures today in Washington. It is a heavy price, but I'm going to go with the team that absolutely needs to win and has the better pitcher on the mound. Give me the Atlanta Braves saying a victory over the Nats.
Oh, I like it. We're taking a break. Baseball talk continues on the other side.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the early line. The baseball talk continues for your Wednesday slate. It's the Royals looking to rock and roll in the series rubber match going against the Pinstripes. The Yankees at home for this one look to be your favorites. They get Luis Hill out there on the mound. The rookie sensation, -152 towards the Pinstripes with that total set at 8. How does the series finish this afternoon, Donnie?
I think that price is too high here, Dubsy, to pay a minus 158 on the New York Yankees. Now, granted, you're going to get that Yankee tax. They're at home. They need a victory. They got to stay on top of the Baltimore Orioles. We get that. But also, the Kansas City Royals, great performance yesterday out of their starting pitcher, Seth Lugo. And I think we might get another solid performance today. You take a look at Cole Reagan, 6-3 over his past 60 days with 57 2/3 innings pitched and a very manageable xFIP number of 3.70. That can't be said here technically for Luis Gil, who started out the season absolutely incredible. And the thought process wasn't like, hey, can he win Rookie of the Year? It's could he be the Cy Young? But since then, if we're looking at the last 60 days, he's still 4-1 through 34 2/3 innings pitched. But if we're looking at his xFIP number, that's at a 4.45, getting into that danger zone. And if we take a look at the last 60 batters that he faced, Dubsy, a 220 ISO and a 350 weighted on base percentage as a whole between lefties and righties. And lefty batters really getting the best of them at a 219 ISO, but a 368 weighted on base percentage. Positive batters in this lineup today, Bobby Witt Jr., MJ Melendez, and Paul DeJong. If we flip it over to the other side, that was a shocking performance yesterday from the Yankee bats. I understand Lugo's been a quality pitcher, but come on, man. You got to get something together. But Cole Reagans has really good splits between lefties and righties. The first three batters in the lineup tonight for the New York Yankees over the past 30 days against left-handed pitching, they've hammered it. Torres, Soto, and Judge. They have to be the catalyst tonight. 3 hits yesterday, no runs from the Yankees. Not good enough. But also, you know what's not good enough? Paying over minus 150 for the Yankees tonight. Maybe a slight dog tonight here on those Kansas City Royals, Dubsy.
Wolf, wolf, wolf. One of the most exciting marquee matchups for the Wednesday slate. The Royals squaring off against the Yankees. Let's march into Boston. The Red Sox at home taking on familiar foes in the Baltimore Orioles. It's the Red Sox favored in this matchup, only just minus 118. They'll get Nick Pivetta to toe the slab. It's Dean Kremer who goes for Baltimore. 39 home runs combined for the two starting pitchers. Could this be the game where we see plenty of offense for the Wednesday?
We probably should. And also, when you take a look at the analytical numbers, they don't shine kindly here on Dean Kremer. 52 2/3 innings pitched over the past 60 days. He's got an ERA around 4, but that xFIP number closer to 5, which is that dangerous territory. But he has been getting a little bit lucky as of late. His last 113 batters he's faced, Dubsy, look at the ISO against, the 069. Tremendous. Weighted on base percentage, 270. Fantastic. But that's a lineup tonight that's going to have a lot of left-handed batters in it. Durant, Devers, Abreu, Yoshida. They should be able to do some damage. Let's take a look at the opposite side and say, you know what? What's Nick Pivetta going to do tonight? Not a great pitcher by any stretch, but also not a dominant pitcher. 4.93 ERA, but his xFIP is around 4. So theoretically, the better pitcher on the mound, if we're just looking analytically, could it be Nick Pivetta? But he has struggled a bit with right-handed batters on the season. You're going to get some pretty powerful bats. Here's the problem. We've loved this Orioles lineup the entire season here, Dubsy. But against right-handed pitching over the past 30 days, Henderson, Mullins, Santander, all good numbers. The rest of the lineup really struggling. If we're just looking analytically, we should get a lot of runs. But I got to tell you, sometimes it might be a little bit of a leap of faith in that direction. Tough call either way here on a side and a total for me here.
Baltimore going against Boston. The Red Sox there looks to be a great matchup for the Wednesday afternoon. A little earlier on the card today, Donnie, it's the Guardians, Cleveland, going against Chicago, the White Sox. We keep harping on about the best teams in baseball. Yeah. Let's talk about the worst team in baseball, Chicago. What a season they have put together, and it doesn't look to get any better here on a Wednesday. Davis Martin gets out there on the hill. The total set at 8, and no surprises, the Guardians heavily favored in this matchup.
Sometimes it feels like this team doesn't even show up whether they have 9 batters or not. And quite frankly, their numbers tell the tale. Let's take a look at Matthew Boyd. He's going to be on the mound today for the Cleveland Guardians. Not a great pitcher by any stretch. He's actually had a pretty good run against right-handed batters, struggling a little bit at times with the power of the left-handed bats, but overall, the better pitcher on the mound today. But let's focus on this White Sox lineup, Dubsy. Last 30 days against left-handed pitching. You know I love me some ISO power numbers. You have a 165 or higher ISO power number, you're doing your job. Everything below that, not so good. Jolks, 0 ISO power number. Robert, 0. Benintendi, 031. Vaughn, 083. Lee, 0. Sosa, 030. Ramos, 0 completely. Vargas, 042. Amaya, 0. Who's getting base hits here for the Chicago White Sox tonight? I can't back them any way, shape, or form. Run line it every night, it feels like, for the Guardians here. Let's go.
It's going to be a tough scene. That's going to do it for me, Donnie Right Side. I've got a little tease for you. Coming up after the break, I'm being replaced by one of the team SportsGrid talent. If he was named after a Kendrick Lamar song, it'd be Humble. Who do we think it is?
Wow.
Wednesday.
There's going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, you know I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Oh, hour number 3, certainly rolling along right here on the early line on a Wednesday morning, Donnie right side. And now we welcome in the one, the only. It's Joe Lisi into the program. Wednesdays with Lisi. That's a nice little ring to it here as we get down to all the hitting details, Joe. How do we feel?
I feel good. I thought I was going to see you tomorrow, and here it is on Wednesday, hump day. I get an early morning fix of DRS, so I'm looking forward to it.
Now, look, on other shows, you might ask the questions when I'm supposed to ask the questions. But on this show, Joe Lisi, we go in order, and I like to ask the questions first, which, again, college football, right up your alley. I watched this game just about last week, Joe, start to finish. Notre Dame and NIU, one of the biggest upsets you are going to see. And where does that leave Notre Dame is the biggest question. Last week, Joe, they were number 5. This week, they're now number 18. Before we get to the matchup on Purdue, what happened with Notre Dame last week? 4-touchdown favorite at home. You can't lose that game.
Oh, absolutely. And I talked about it with Kevin in Game Time Decisions. The fact that they came out for a season opener after the beating that they gave Texas A&M in the interior, and they come out flat. They couldn't run the football. They couldn't shut down NIU. They lost the turnover battle. Riley Leonard was completely inconsistent, and that's on Marcus Freeman. That's a coaching type of situation. Donnie, the numbers were amazing. I mean, Notre Dame, I believe, and I have to double check, but when I did that game, they have never lost to a MAC opponent. A week 1 matchup opening up in terms of South Bend since the days of the 1800s, whenever they started, they had like a 910 winning percentage opening day. So it's fine that they didn't cover, but to lose the game outright as a 28.5-point favorite to Northern Illinois, not even picked as one of the better teams in the MAC, that was a pitiful performance, and that falls solely on Marcus Freeman.
I'm pretty surprised here because we're going to take a look at some of the numbers here for Notre Dame now on the season and what is left of it here. As I said, at 1-1 to make the playoffs, it's a 3-1 price, which I do think is substantially lower than what I would actually rate it at. You see, to win it all, that is at 100 to number, which I agree with there. I don't think there's any chance of that. So moving forward, and here's some of the topics that I love to bring up. Like typically, Joe, if you're in a conference, right, and we can equate this to like Florida State. They're down and out. They lost their first 2 games. But theoretically, they can still win the ACC, which means it doesn't matter what anybody else does in college football. You get that automatic bid into the playoff. Notre Dame is not in a conference. They don't get the automatic bid. Is the season over already for Notre Dame after just in the expanded playoff era?
No, I don't think it is. I think 3-1 is fair. They went from minus 170 in the offseason to now 3-1. They still play USC, assuming that USC is for real, right? They get the victory over LSU. They're going to face Michigan in a couple of weeks. They're already 8.5, or they were preseason 8.5-point dogs in that matchup. If they go into the big house and get that victory, and let's say they're going toe-to-toe with Ohio State as the best team in the Big Ten, and Notre Dame could get that win, Donnie, then that'll catapult them to potentially a top 10 ranking. But there is no margin of error. They play Army and Navy on the schedule. They play Miami of Ohio, another MAC opponent. You have to run the table. At worst, you have to be 11-1, I believe, right now, unless Florida State can right the ship because they get them in South Bend later in the year.
Now, let's take a look at this week's game because you're going to take on a Big Ten opponent. Purdue won their opener. They're 1-0. Notre Dame obviously comes in this game 1-1. If we see the graphic here that's going to be posted, Notre Dame is a favorite. They're supposed to be a favorite. But the look-ahead lines, Joe, 17s, 16.5. Yeah. They plummet to below 10 now, minus 9.5, and a total of 45.5. Like, the way most of our handicapping minds work is we're trying to find a team that's like buy low and sell high at this point. Notre Dame might not be lower at any time over the next 10 years after a loss to NIU. Is there a chance that you're buying back on them this weekend going up against Purdue, or was that loss last week indicative of what's to expect from the Notre Dame Fighting Irish?
No, I think it could be a bounce back spot, but it is a tricky line, right? It opened up at like 11.5, 12. Now we're seeing 9.5. Donnie, they've won 8 straight in the series against Purdue. The last time Purdue beat Notre Dame was back in 2007. The last time they played in regards to this matchup was back in 2021. Here's the thing. Hudson Card, the quarterback for Purdue, threw 4 touchdowns, completed 90% of his passes, 24-25 in regards to the beatdown of Indiana State, and they get basically 12 days of preparation. They only played on August 31st, so it's like a bye right after the first game of the regular season, which is ridiculous if you think about it. So the extra prep is why I think you're seeing the line come down in favor of the Boilermakers, and they're typically a live dog. But if I'm going to bet this game, I probably would take Notre Dame in a bounce-back spot, but I don't love it, Donnie. I'm not betting this game in any capacity. I would probably go Notre Dame, and I would take a shot on over 45.5.
Marcus Freeman said they bought into the hype last week, taking on NIU. You could buy into whatever hype you want. It's not as if it's like, hey, we're playing a division opponent or a conference opponent favored by 4.5. You're favored by 4 touchdowns at home. You should walk onto the football field and win that with ease. They didn't. You'll probably get the best version of Notre Dame this week. Why? Because the coach certainly is going to have their ears. Let's take a look at another top 25 matchup this weekend. 12:45 p.m. Missouri, the home team. Boston College, the road team, but both teams 2-0 and 2-0. So 4 wins combined. Boston College comes in ranked 24th. Missouri ranked number 6. How are we lining this football game off as a heavy favorite towards Missouri here at 16.5?
I'm going to shock some people. I think this is a fishy line. I think they're begging you to take Boston College and Thomas Castellanos in a rushing attack that's averaging 282 rushing yards per game. That goes right into the strength of Missouri. They're only giving up around 68 yards on the ground. They're converting Missouri as 60% in regards to third down offense. They do have, I believe, the better quarterback in regards to the passing attack. Brady Cook over Castellanos. And again, the last time these two teams played was a couple of years ago, went right down to the fourth quarter. But again, I do feel Missouri has a speed advantage in this matchup. Luther Burden going against that secondary. I think Missouri starts fast. It could be maybe a 10-point game, 13-point game, and they tack one on to win this ball game by 20. I'm going to lay it here, shockingly, in this ball game.
Yeah, Castellanos certainly a fun quarterback to watch play. You saw him in that Florida State game. They were the better team all the way through. Maybe the building of some good things by Bill O'Brien back up there for BC. Let's move to another one here. Midwest action. The Oklahoma Sooners at home 2-0 in the season, ranked number 15, going up against Tulane, 1-1. Lost a tough one there to Kansas State. This line, minus 13.5, just below 2 touchdowns, and a total of 47.5. Tulane, Oklahoma. Expectations here, Joe.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the dog here. I was on Tulane against Kansas State, and I was on Houston against Oklahoma. Part of it is I'm not a big buyer of Jackson Arnold. Still a little bit inconsistent in the passing attack. They're only averaging around 166 passing yards per game. And you look at the rushing attack of Tulane, 195 yards per game. Their quarterback, Mensa, is pretty good. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. They're battle-tested. I know they lost a tough home game against a top-ranked opponent in K-State, but they're going on the road. I just don't think Oklahoma's all that good, even though they're very good in run support. Give me the points with the Green Wave on the road in this matchup, Donnie.
By the way, let me ask you another quick one here before we get to the break. Michigan and Arkansas State. It's the same thing that we talk about like with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Not a great performance on their end, but Notre Dame lost as a 4-touchdown dog. Michigan was actually a dog in their own building. Let's call it a touchdown. Bounce back performance from Michigan this week. They're favored by close to 24 points with a total around 50 here. What can we expect from Michigan coming off of that embarrassing loss to Texas the week before?
They might win, but I'm not going to bet that game. I would take the points with Arkansas State. Sharon Moore, they just signed his contract, I believe, this morning, so that's a boost. I would wait till Michigan gets one cover, then I would take them. I can't bet this game, hoping they cover this game. They get a win, but Arkansas State keeps it close, I think.
Yeah, it should be a good weekend of college football. And again, we are moving quickly throughout the season. Big games we played. We're certainly going to determine who those final playoff spots will be a little bit later down the line. But a lot is going to go to determine that here. We're going to flip it over to the NFL up next year because we got an awesome game on Thursday Night Football that you're certainly not going to want to miss. And we'll preview that. And also, Pro Football Today crew in the building tomorrow night. It's Joe Lisi. It's Donnie Rightside. And I can't remember the third guy that shows up to that TV show. Maybe it'll come to me over the break at this point, but it's Joe and Donnie talking football. Then this stuff going back at the break.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, you know I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Right back here on the early line at Joe and Donnie talking some NFL action. I was reminded, one of the producers got me. It is going to be Kevin Walsh tomorrow night that does join us in studio for Pro Football Today. So the boys will be all together, having a lot of fun. Maybe full suits, maybe tuxedos. We never know. Joe Lisi always dressed in nines. We'll see him live and in charge. But before we get there, we do have a preview to go over. It's a great game, Joe. Buffalo, Miami, both teams 1-0. Each team pulled out a win in their game. Big comebacks on both sides here in the second half. Buffalo beat an underwhelming Arizona Cardinals team, but a very game Jacksonville Jaguars team. By the way, Joe, had the chance to watch that game all the way through. That Travis Etienne fumble in the third quarter changed that game completely. That should have been a Jaguars victory, which turned into a loss. These two teams will face off. Both of these teams now, Joe, FanDuel Sportsbook to win the division, plus 180 on either side. The favorite in this game to win this one, it's Miami at a minus 2.5 point price and a total that sits at 48.5. First look at this game tomorrow night, Thursday. What is it?
Yeah, I'm a Dolphin fan, but I'm going to take the Bills, Donnie, plus the 120 on the money line, plus the points, and I think the game sails through the 48.5. I think this is one game where both offenses will eat. I watched that game as well, and the way Jacksonville ran with authority against that front seven, I think it's going to continue with Josh Allen and, more importantly, James Cook in regards to this matchup. I think they're able to wear down Miami, get chunk plays. I love James Cook at plus 160 for an anytime touchdown. I think he can get up to 100 in regards to this matchup. They didn't utilize him in the goal line against Arizona. I expect a big presence on the road. I just think Buffalo's the better team. It really comes down to, forget what you want to say about what they lost. They're still more complete offensively and defensively and have the best quarterback on the field in Josh Allen. I think that's the difference.
It's going to be a great game to watch, but I agree with you because talking to you on Sunday, I know you were high on James Cook. Now, granted, me driving home just listening on the radio wasn't able to get a view of what was going on. The one thing I do know is Josh Allen is tremendous. Maybe the best overall quarterback in the NFL. Donnie, it's Patrick Mahomes. I'm talking rushing, running, arm strength, all that. The intangibles, he gives you everything. But, Joe, he can't go through a season where he's running 2 touchdowns in a game, throwing 2 touchdowns. He has to be the everything. James Cook looked tremendous in that game. And going forward, you saw last week what happened to Josh Allen. Diving into the end zone, injures the non-throwing hand. Hey, buddy, you can hand the football off and probably get the same exact results. And I do think Joe Brady in that offense will determine that, saying it's a Thursday night game. My quarterback is banged up. When we're on the 3-yard line, do we call a quarterback sweep or just hand the football off to Cook? I love the look for Cook to get into the end zone. On the other side for the Miami Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa in that offense, explosive as it gets. Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane didn't do much on the ground last week, Joe, but the air attack is where they made it happen. Deep plays for Waddle. I know you had him alted up over his yards. He hits that easily. You had Tyreek Hill going over 100 with a touchdown. Are we going to see that type of offensive output? Because, quite frankly, I wasn't all that happy with that Buffalo defense against Arizona, but a different quarterback. Tua Tagovailoa is, let's just say, mobile, but not to the degree that Kyler Murray is, which he made a lot of things happen by himself and extending plays. That's not going to happen tomorrow night.
No, it's not, but I still think Tua gets over the 264.5. I mean, think about that matchup at the end of the regular season last year, right? It was more of a rushing attack. That's where Buffalo grounded down Miami. Tua was inconsistent with the interceptions. You have to go fast and put the pressure on Josh Allen to match them score for score, right? Buffalo had success even though they fell behind 17-3 because they were able to run the football effectively, and then he worked off a play action. They're still not built to have Josh Allen chuck it 50 times a game to jump out to leads. It's all predicated on the physicality of the offensive line. So I think that's the difference between both offenses, Buffalo and Miami. Miami, you have the Ferrari, you have Tyreek, you have Waddle. I think both of those players eat, and you have to, right, Donnie? I mean, Miami has success when both of those guys are in their numbers, 96, 62, Waddle gets to 80. They have about 200 yards receiving between them, and Tua has 400 because he's utilizing everyone in regards to the passing attack. Even H.N. coming out of the backfield is an option. So I think we look Miami passing and Buffalo on the ground Thursday night.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the props once again in just a moment, but I wanted to get this up here too. The Miami Dolphins plus 180 to win that division. Same exact price for the Buffalo Bills at plus 180. Goes a long way, obviously, in that game tomorrow where the winner is going to be the decided advantage to win it. Why? Because the head-to-head matchup, they've won it. Also, they have a better record. Let me ask you a question, though. If the Buffalo Bills do lose tomorrow, which technically they're favored to do so, is that a good buy-in point for the Buffalo Bills on their odds to win the AFC and the AFC East at that point? Or are you just not as high on the Buffalo Bills or maybe like somebody better in the AFC East?
No, I talked about it with you and Kevin on Sunday. I actually believe, I'm buying in on Buffalo this year. The expectation isn't there. It's all on Cincinnati and Baltimore and now Houston and C.J. Stroud. What were they? Plus 950 to win the AFC at the start of the year. So if they lose this game and potentially, let's say for an AFC championship, go double digits, 10, 11, 12 to 1, I think it's a buy-in fact. In regards to the AFC, I'm still hands down. I've never changed. Even being a Dolphin fan, I got to look at it objectively. Buffalo owns the division. Somehow, some way, they'll find a way to win it, and they still have the best quarterback in regards to the division, right? Josh Allen is better than Tua. Yeah. He's better than Aaron Rodgers in that offense in New York, and he's certainly better than Jacoby Brissett. So you want to give me 180 before this game starts, I'm not swaying.
And the one thing we need to see about the Buffalo Bills is that offense with a chance to mature. It was ready set the past couple of years here. I like the tight end combinations here. Cook looks like he can be that lead dog here. I just need to see, like Keon Coleman had a decent game on Sunday. You take a look at Shakir and also Mac Hollins, who caught a touchdown pass at the end of that first quarter. That they need to show me a little bit more of saying, I can step up in the biggest moments. Because as we know, Joe, you're going to go up against one of the best wide receiver combinations in football in Hill and Waddle. So let me ask you this question again with the props quickly here. Tyreek Hill, 97.5 receiving yards. Jalen Waddle at 63.5. If you had to take one bet in this football game of who you're going to go over on the receiving yards, which one of those guys would you take?
Waddle, secondary option, right? Because, again, you always want to take away the best option for the quarterback. And even though it is Tyreek Hill, Waddle has such a cheap number. He got, 90 yards in regards to Jacksonville? So you want to hang a 63 number on Jalen Waddle. I'll up them up to 80 to 100 on Thursday night.
Always fun to talk football here with Joe, Lisi, and also week 1 to week 2. A lot of changes are going to happen in the NFL, no doubt about it. But the boys will be in studio tomorrow night to watch it all go down between the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. Don't miss out. Joe, Lisi's going to carry the rest of the show. He's on a hot streak, pension plays left and right. Don't go anywhere. Watch out.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, back on the early line. Donnie and Ben will be back tomorrow. Donnie and I will be in studio as well, breaking down everything for the Thursday night battle with Kevin Walsh, Buffalo, and Miami. Donnie did mention that I am actually on a heater in regards to the baseball overs, 5-1 if you just took them straight up. So we'll try to continue. I'm not going to lie, haven't been following baseball all that much with college and pro football, but we'll see if we can keep it continuing today. Give me the bye, stinger, baby. Bye. All right, here we go. Texas and Arizona. Now, I looked at this lineup, and I understood that Texas, I believe, on the road here in Arizona could really score some runs. I like their team total tonight, but I really like this 8.5. It's juiced to the under heavily, I believe, at minus 118, minus 105 to the over. Give me the over in Texas and Arizona. Maybe we could get it up to 9.5, 10.5. We can get into the double digits. I looked at this line. It's even money in regards to the total. 8.5 between the Reds and the Cardinals. This game, I believe, was 3-0 last night. We've seen the Reds struggle over the past 4 games. They get 3 runs last night. They win 3-0 in St. Louis, but they've struggled in regards to the games against the Mets. Very low output. You're hanging an 8.5 total in regards to this matchup. St. Louis has been a crutch for me throughout the year, but I'm going to go back to the well. The Reds and the Cardinals over the 8.5. It's even money. That's the 2-team parlay. Texas and Arizona over the 8.5 runs, and the Reds and the Cardinals over the 8.5. Your early line parlay by Lisi. We'll see if we can go 7-1. Big game on Friday night as it relates to college football. You got Noah Fafita and McMillan, the big play wide receiver, Heisman Trophy potential dark horse at 60-1, taking on Avery Johnson and Kansas State. Kansas State almost was on life support. Upset City in the Bayou against Tulane. Tulane had an early first half lead. They built it. They had an opportunity to tie the game up at 24. They were inside the 20-yard line, could not convert penalties, and K-State escapes with a 7-point win. Now they're laying 7.5 to Arizona and Jed Fish. This is an intriguing matchup because I'm inclined to take Arizona with the points, but I think playing in regards to Manhattan, that's the difference. I think K-State gets back to basics. They run the football with Giddens and, more importantly, Avery Johnson. I would probably lay the 7.5 in regards to this matchup. I don't love the game. It wouldn't shock me if Arizona strikes the upset, but I would go to K-State. Avery Johnson with a cheap number in regards to his rushing. 42.5. He is a catalyst with that offense. When he's utilizing his legs on the perimeter, they potentially win ball games. So give me Avery Johnson. I might even alt him up to 50 or 60 yards and definitely maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns in regards to that matchup. There's a huge slate of college football this coming weekend. And Ben Stevens, myself, and Kevin Walsh on College Football Today will break it down. We start 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. this coming Saturday. One of the games that I'm looking at, unbelievable. The first time that LSU has been in Columbia, South Carolina since 2008. You want to talk about a series dominated by LSU. 15-2-1 overall against the South Carolina Gamecocks. South Carolina gets the upset as a 10.5-point dog last week against Brock Vandegrift and Kentucky. They win the ball game outright as a 10.5-point dog. They come back home, and this line open up on FanDuel at 7.5. We're seeing now in the middle of the week 6.5 respectively. So I like LSU in this matchup. This is a game I think Brian Kelly gets right. You saw LSU struggle in regards to Nicholls State. We saw them lose outright against USC and Miller Moss. This is a SEC game, first conference game, and Brian Kelly, typically a very good road coach. We talked about it. Even though he hasn't stepped up in terms of week one performances, he still has a 670 winning percentage on the road or on a neutral field dating back to Notre Dame since 2017. Give me the Bayou Bengals minus the 6.5. I'll give you a dog that I'm looking at. Georgia and Kentucky. It looks like it's all Georgia. They dominated this game last year by 30-plus points. They're laying 24. Last 4 meetings in Lexington, the Dogs have won, but it's been very close. They've only won by an average margin of victory of 10.2 points per game. Keep an eye out for Stoops. Keep an eye out for Vandegrift to bounce back under the lights in Lexington. Those cats could be live Saturday night. We'll see you tomorrow. Craig Mish coming up next with Newswire. Okay.